Alright, welcome to my UFC 322 breakdown, everyone. We luckily got through the anticlimactic weeks, to say the least, so this one should be fun. We'll do the 10 minutes of questions, quick status update, and then we'll get into the breakdown pretty quickly after. Duel or Ilya at 185? It's a tough matchup for Ilya. So the problem that Yoel will always have is that he's so reliant on bursts that if you know when he's going to burst and you know how to mitigate it, you can win. Yoel, of course, would negate all of Ilya's grappling very easily, but it's a tough question. I might actually have to look at their specific tendencies a bit more. Hey, Mr. Mike. 2 weeks of back-to-back Apex cards was definitely a grade. Who would have won between Haddon and Wellmaker? So I was very prepared to give a very nuanced breakdown of that one, where my conclusion was going to be that it's a very close fight, because I actually believe that Haddon, between the two of them, is the better fighter. His boxing is a lot cleaner and more technical, and he doesn't have any glaring weaknesses. However, I would have ended up picking Wellmaker because of the fact that Haddon still has... He's still hittable, right? Even though he's a cleaner boxer, he does get hit sometimes. And Wellmaker only needs the one shot, so I think Wellmaker probably would have found the one shot quicker than Haddon would have been able to find a finish. Are casuals allowed this time? Since it's a pay-per-view, we'll allow casuals. Haddon or Topuria, who would have won? So originally I was thinking Haddon, but now I'm thinking Topuria probably would have pulled it off. This is honestly the biggest weekend of combat sports in a very long time. We have UFC 322 and more than one after. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good month. Hope you're doing well, Oracle. First time I caught this live. Welcome, and thank you. I'm doing all right. Hope you are as well. Michael Morales cuts from 191 pounds. Yeah, he's massive. Had a chance to watch Wellmaker's new opponent? Unfortunately not. Wellmaker's a massive favorite, so I am going to assume that he's going to win, and I will break down Wellmaker because I know some of you are going to want that breakdown, but I actually have no idea who his opponent is. I'm excited. You going full detail today? Yes, I'll do my best to give as much detail as possible, and what we might actually do is do polls in between every fight, because I want to see what you guys think before I give the analysis. Is this a good card to bet on? I mean, I think so. We never know until the card's over, realistically. We could have 13 upsets and everything goes to decision or something, but it looks reasonable. Brady is 200 in cage. I imagine they cut down from 200 and change each. Brady's 200 in cage? You sure about that? That seems a little bit extreme to me. John said everyone's the same way as size on their back. True. Polls are a good idea, thanks. Thoughts on Ottawa Gaudier versus Joe Pyfer? So Pyfer's more technical right now, so I'd go with Pyfer. Is Morales keeping Sean Brady at range? We'll get to the specific fight breakdowns when we get to that one. Please tell me why JDM will beat Islam. We'll get to that, don't worry. The guy fighting just beat the guy add-on beat on Contender Series. Interesting, okay. I wish I could put money on Leon getting a point taken for eye poking. On some books you can. On the Imavov fight, I bet on there being an eye poke at plus 400 or something wild, and we got 2 or 3 of them. Please God give us some highlight finishes. Yeah, agreed. Brady was 198 against Leon. That's wild. If he's able to put on basically 20 pounds, sorry, not 20, 30 pounds after weighing in, that's actually ridiculous. Are you going to do a summary of how the picks of last card went? Yes, I will do a quick one. What's up, Oracle? Hope you're doing well. Thank you. Hope you are as well. All right, so we will get into the summary of last one so that we don't stall too far out before we go to the currents card. Let me set this up quickly. So I'm going to zoom in a lot on this page because I know you guys say that you cannot see it a lot of the time. All right, so Zach Reese versus Jackson McVeigh. I actually thought Reese would do better on the feet. I feel like McVeigh is a fighter who has potential. He just got to the UFC way too early. Like, for his own sake, they should probably send him back to the regional scene, do 2-3 more years, then bring him back. But technically got the pick correct, so yeah. Marcos versus Miles Johns. I got the pick correct as well. Method, no one expected. Submission. I just am not that impressed with Marcos' stand-up still. Like, even though the commentators were making it seem like he was dominating, he was relying a lot more on the wrestling than I would have liked. So I still don't know if Marcos goes much further, but technically it was a good performance. Gomes versus Pennington. Very bad fight IQ from Pennington. I actually felt like she could have won this, but I feel like they were very much around the same level, and I don't think either of them goes much further, in all honesty. Hockett versus Jimenez. That was actually impressive from Hockett because he had not shown much striking in the past. So the fact that all of a sudden he is like an actually reasonable striker, apparently. I'm going to scroll even further in. Yeah, the fact that now he's apparently a reasonable striker, well, at heavyweight, that's going to go very far because he is fast. Granted, the fact that he got blasted by one calf kick and like it looked like it really bothered him, not the best look, but other than that, pretty solid performance from him. Cavalcanti versus Silva. Honestly, it looked like Silva didn't even train for this fight. Like, I'm happy I got my pick correct, but I don't know what I was watching. It looked like they were light sparring for most of the fight, and neither wanted to even be there. I think this is the first... Oh no, I technically got Gomez versus Pennington wrong. This is the first fight I got very wrong. Or not very wrong. It was a close fight, but I did expect Simone to be able to take down Barcelos more than that. He got no takedowns here versus one takedown. That was pretty much it. And Barcelos is somehow evolving at his old age. He wasn't really using uppercuts much in the past. He really incorporated that more in this fight. So good for Barcelos. I think the problem is everyone wants him to get a ranked opponent, but every time they try to give him that step up, he loses. So I feel like they're not going to, or if they do, they're just going to give him a nightmare matchup because they know he's not marketable. But it's tough for Simone because he's just not breaking a certain skill level, unfortunately. So he's just going to be a perpetual gatekeeper, it seems like. Emmers versus Emil was disappointing for me because I picked against Emil every single fight until now, and I was like, Emil is the worst fighter, but Emmers doesn't like pace, so I'm going to have to pick Emil. And then, of course, we just saw Emil's the worst fighter. I did not expect it to be a grappling fest, to say the least, but Emmers definitely showed more to his game, and Emil showed that he's just not a good fighter. So that is what it is. Duncan versus Tulio, this was my best read on the entire card. This went pretty much exactly how I laid out in the last stream. Duncan's movement was too much for Tulio, who's a bit stiff in the striking and doesn't have the pressure that Robocop does. We need to see Duncan get a shot at the rankings, but he needs to get a little bit more technical and not spin as much, in my opinion. Padilla versus Bonfim. If you guys saw my story on that fight, the day before, I believe, where I said that Bonfim might be fighting hurt because there was a strong rumor that came out that he was going to be fighting hurt, it kind of looked like that. Maybe Padilla's pace was just too much for him anyways. We're never going to know how much the potential injury affected things. Bonfim did not look like he was there, though, whether it was the weight cut or an injury. So technically good performance for Padilla. I just can't see him going that far because he doesn't seem that talented, to be honest. Medic versus Salikov. Okay, Salikov's old, Medic is fast. We all knew that could happen, even though I thought Salikov could probably get him out of there if the fight went a bit longer. I don't think anyone's that shocked that, like, okay, he was too slow, Medic caught him. Morales versus Schnell. Good performance from Morales. His grappling is extremely clean for that weight class, and I do want to see how he can do going forwards. It just doesn't say much because Schnell was kind of semi-retired already. But, yeah, I mean, good performance all around. Bonfim versus Brown was the most surprising fight, probably not because the winner. I was pretty confident in Bonfim, but because of how he did it. I did think that Bonfim was going to have to shoot takedowns. The fact that he just straight up outclassed him on the feet, pretty much with everything, Bonfim's going to go pretty far. I know people are mad he got like to 10th in the rankings without beating anyone ranked, but skill for skill, that's probably pretty accurate in all honesty. And yeah, he's a problem. Brown, on the other hand, is one of those fighters who's probably going to fade into being a perpetual gatekeeper, unfortunately for him. Maybe he should move up to 185, like people are saying. Maybe that will give him a fresh start, but I don't think that's the problem. I think just skill-wise, he's not quite there. He's too reliant on slinging his shots, which is kind of easy to read if you know what you're looking for, and he doesn't have too much nuance to his game. But all right, that out of the way, we will go back to current one. Answer a few more questions, and then we will continue in the current analysis. Who did you pick, Bonfim versus Randy? I had Bonfim. I had Bonfim's submission round 1. He did not even wrestle at all, so that did not work, but he got the finish. Does your betting service cover prize pick bets? It does not directly cover prize pick bets. We do have certain things that you can attribute to it. So for example, we have like go the distance probabilities and such. So you can use them, but it is not going to be direct. Is betting your full-time job yet? I would say that content creation and everything to do with UFC is my full-time job right now. I wouldn't say it's betting. Betting is definitely part of the focus. Obviously, I am building up the betting service, but there's other things I'm working on as well. So, for example, I am building a service to help fighters optimize their trading and such. So that's been a lot of my time right now. Surprised Barcelos didn't gas? No, I'm not surprised Barcelos didn't gas. He's always had a good gas tank. I'm just surprised Simone didn't look a little bit better, in all honesty. Tulio was sleeping. That KO was brutal. Yeah, for sure. Tulio thought Duncan would keep trying to be unnecessary at the move and eventually get caught by Tulio. I understand the thought. It's just Tulio's a little bit too stiff to deal with someone dynamic like Duncan. Pocket or Walker? I'm going to say Walker, but a little bit nervous on that one. What do you think happened to Marlon Moraes? Was the Henry lost too much, or is he always going to crumble to his bantamweights? Yeah, so the fight against Cejudo, it looked like it just destroyed him, because he took so much damage in that fight that he just never looked like he was willing to take a shot after that again, and he was getting dropped by pretty much air afterwards. You're my favorite MMA YouTuber, Oracle. Thank you, glad to hear it. CLD versus Susurkaev prediction. I take CLD. What's up, Flacco? Is adding a minus 1,000 favorite in a parlay unneeded? I'm not going to say there's never a time for it, but if you're going for like a crazy long shot and then you add a minus 1,000, maybe not the best play. Prime Khabib or Brady? I actually think Khabib could probably just outstrike him to a decision, but I'm not confident. Is it crazy to say that the non-stop pressure from Weili will overwhelm Valentina when you... Who you got? We'll get to that, don't worry. Thoughts on Ilya and Paddy being in the works. Ilya will kill him in a round. Off rip, who's the craftiest veteran on the card? On the card? I mean, maybe if we want to call Borschev a veteran. Alright, so... What made Khabib so good? His chain wrestling. The fact he had the best chain wrestling in UFC history. I do think that he's a little bit overrated and that a lot of people think he's unstoppable when he had very clear weaknesses. But if we're talking about pure like chain wrestling, he was the best. Like there's no question there in my opinion. What's up, Oracle? Hey, Rocket. All right, let's put a poll out for this fight. I gotta remember how to do this. All right, I just created the poll for who wins this fight. So far, we're pretty 50-50 here. How long are your lives usually? I think we average around 2 hours. And do you waste someone getting mogged in face-offs? No. Just a coin flip, to be honest. I understand the perspective. Slava Claus isn't good. Camilo will catch him his sub. We'll see. I really love the CLD call. When Oracle tells you to go against everyone but the house. Thank you. Hope Slava wins. Fair. Alright, we'll leave this open for around 10 more seconds, then we'll close it and get into the breakdown. It seems like there's a slight edge towards Camilo right now. All right, we will close it here. So we ended up with 59% to Camilo. I do have my notes, so we will be doing a organized breakdown. Oh, I do not have notes on this one because this was a late edition, but it doesn't matter. I have these guys in memory, so it's okay. So Mateus Camilo is mostly a power puncher. He is a finisher from pretty much all positions. Even when he is on the ground, he's going to jump for submissions, but his preference is to load up on the feet and catch you with massive shots. If he cannot catch you, he will start mixing up his game plan. He will start mixing in the wrestling and so on, but he's just hyper aggressive with pretty much everything he does, and that just summarizes him as a fighter. With Borschev, he is a very technical striker, and especially with the counter striking. If you are coming in recklessly, he's going to catch you with hooks. He is relatively defensively responsible on the feet, which I know is hard to imagine given that he got dropped by Chase Hooper, but I do think that was because he was over-anticipating the takedown threat, and overhands when you're anticipating a takedown can give you mixed signals and get you caught. But otherwise, he's been fairly safe, and he did go to the draw with Nazim Sadykhov, which in hindsight is pretty impressive here. His biggest weakness, of course, is because he is so focused on the stand-up. He is fairly easy to take down, and not that he is easy to sub on the ground, even though he did get subbed by McKinney, but you can definitely just rack up some control time and then win a decision off of that control. In this fight, I do have to... Okay, so this is my perspective on Camilo. I think Camilo had the worst UFC debut possible. Now, I know that there's been people who got just absolutely starched in a minute, and that might look worse, but this is what happened with Camilo. Camilo started in the striking, and loaded up on a double jab overhands, got countered and hurt badly. So then he goes to the wrestling. Okay, he gets the takedown, but we know that his striking maybe is not great because he just got countered and hurt badly by Gabe Green. So he goes to the wrestling, gets the takedown. Okay, that's good. Then he decides to give up an advantageous position to chase the triangle. So maybe not the best fight IQ. He chases the triangle, and Gabe Green kind of gives him the position for the triangle, but he somehow loses the triangle anyway. So we know that his submission grappling is not great either. And then he immediately gasses out right after that and then gets finished. So we know his cardio sucks as well. So in a single fight, we found out that his striking is bad, his grappling is bad, his fight IQ is bad, and his cardio is bad. So I don't know how it can get much worse for him in that sense. Now, on the other side, with Slava, right? Would I be shocked if Camilo found a way to chin him or take him down and sub him? Not at all. Slava's not exactly the most reliable fighter at this point, and he has been finished a few times now. But I do have to go with the cleaner striking of Slava, because I don't think Camilo's going to lock up a sub very easily. It took Hooper a long time to find the sub, even against a rocked Borschev. And on the feet, there's a world of a difference, because while Camilo is loading up with those massive overhands and crosses, Borschev is just going to catch him with check hooks and such. So I'm going to say Borschev counters him a few times and knocks him out in round one. Now, is this a confident prediction? Of course not, but that's what I'm leaning towards. UFC jitters, maybe? I would say that, except I was looking at his previous fights, and he always fights like that. He ticked all the boxes of negative tests for a fighter. Yeah, exactly. Had Camilo just gotten chinned by, the first counter that Gabe Green threw that rocked him, it would have been okay, maybe he just didn't get to showcase all of his skills, and therefore we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and see where he goes. But he got a chance to showcase all his skills and kind of failed all of them. So I do have to go with Borschev, round 1 TKO. I'm not even going to run a poll for this one. We all know who everyone is going to pick, but we will give the full breakdown anyways. So Susurkaev is a very well-rounded fighter, but he is actually mainly a kicker. And his kicks are strange because it doesn't look like he's kicking that hard, but they hurt everyone. So they are deceptively powerful. I don't exactly know the mechanics behind it, but it works, so good for him. He throws a lot of teeps and a lot of low kicks. He was able to basically end the fight with calf kicks last time out because he hurt the guy badly enough that he was able to then get the takedown that he hadn't been able to previously. But before that, he'd ended multiple fights with front kicks and such. His defense kind of sucks. He will kind of just high guard and just wait for you to throw stuff and back up in a straight line, and it is not optimal, which is why he got rocked really badly at the end of round 1 last fight. In this fight, probably not going to matter though. The other issue I have with Susurkaev is that he's extremely low urgency. If you push him against the fence, he'll just kind of wait there until you make a massive mistake. He's not going to like try to grab an underhook, frame off, and so on. He's just going to wait until you try to transition, fail it, and then he'll move. McConico was originally more of a wrestler. He would kind of just grind you against the fence and then try to drag you down from there. But he started striking a lot more in recent times. He likes to do like punch then kick or kick then punch combos a lot, but his defense is just abysmal. He's someone who started fighting at an older age. You could see that the fundamentals really aren't there. Susurkaev should have a field day. Obviously, this fight was put together so he could just make a highlight out of McConico. So we're going to say Susurkaev first round knockout via the front kick, let's say, but it could be pretty much anything. Now, I will put a poll up, even though we do have a large favorite for this one, just in case, because I do want to see what everyone's thinking. All right, poll is up. Step down in competition. Yeah, for Susurkaev is definitely a step down in competition. Susurkaev is very overconfident, also that's why he's so unurgent. Yes, but you would also think for arrogant fighters that they would want to get like the knockout as soon as possible. So it's a very weird thing where like usually they're rushing when they're like that confident. When they're that confident. But he's not rushing. He's just like, oh, okay, I'll just wait until you give me a knockout and then take it. After Susurkaev wins, I think him versus Brady would be cool. That's definitely a possibility. I almost am hoping that they build them both separately, though, because I do think Brady is actually a lot better than people think he is. Brady is, like, after his first fight, which he looked really bad in, everyone counted him out. But then in his second fight against Tavares, I was like, he looks like a free bet here, and I'm glad that he was, because I was thinking I was crazy with everyone picking Tavares. But yeah, no, Brady has solid power, pretty good boxing, and so on. Even if it goes to split 29-28, they'll give it to Fatima. Probably true. 18-15 record's outrageous, fair. Alright, we'll leave this open for 10 more seconds. We have 88% on Kline right now. %89 on Kline. Alright, yeah, there we go. So, pretty much everyone is picking Kline. Now, we will get to my breakdown, which is going to be half glazing. So, Fatima Kline does not fight at all like a WMMA fighter. She has a lot of footwork, and it's not just footwork on the outside. It's also footwork with her with how she enters the pocket, exits the pocket, and so on. She pressures a lot, she switches stances a lot, and she constantly changes her angles up. She's kind of like, in a way, the Dominic Cruz of WMMA, except arguably with more technical striking. Now, don't worry about the whole glazing curse. We already got that out of her way with her loss to Jasmine, so now she's just doing well, it seems. She throws a lot of strong jabs on the outside, and will throw a lot of hard kicks. She'll switch up the target, which we saw a lot in the last fight. She'll start with the legs and body, and then start going up for the head and try to get the knockout there. Whenever she enters, she will throw a combination. She's not just like entering with one punch and then trying to dip out unless it's just a strong jab. Most of her shots are double legs, but she will change it up to throws if she's not getting the initial double leg. On the ground, she's going to look for a finish constantly, unlike most WMMA fighters, and she's just going to blast elbows and then look for submissions. One thing that people have not realized about her game yet is that she has done a lot of BJJ comp, like pure BJJ comp, and she is good there. So she is very live for a submission whenever the fight is on the ground. Angela Hill, on the other hand, she keeps a lot of feints and high activity, so a lot of her like movement can throw people off and give her opportunities to land. It also, sometimes people with just more movement in general, it appeals to the judges because it looks like they're doing a bit more. She'll throw out a lot of teeps, and generally speaking, she won't get tired. She's going to be able to keep up the same pace the entire fight. She's not very dangerous, though. She does have some submissions in her pocket, like she's capable of a guillotine if you straight up give it to her, but otherwise she's not going to be ending the fight. I think Kline is going to absolutely destroy her, and this is a setup fight to throw Kline slowly towards a title shot. I do think that with Weili leaving this division, Kline will be a champion within 2 years, probably max. So I'm going to say Kline wins by second round submission. And I think it's going to be like a heel hook or something along those lines. When she gets Hill down, Hill tries to scramble and ends up in a weird position. So I am very excited to see how Kline does, and I hope she does not let this go to a decision because I want her to get a highlight here and really work towards the title. Fighting Angela Hill in 2025 is just UFC level record padding. I mean, she fought Lucinda last time out though, so it's like technically she's been fighting good comp. Angela Hill is the female Neil Magny, valid. Random, but have you watched Physical Asia? No, I have no idea what that is. Fatima Kline will lose just out of spite of Oracle's glazing possible. Is the Kline sub pick bias, or is it actually a good bet? It's plus 550 right now. I don't know what the method will be. It's a fight where I could see any method occurring. I'm leaning towards submission, but don't take that as a confident pick. I do think it will be a submission, to be clear. But it's not like we're saying like 35% submission, 33% TKO, and so on, if you get what I mean. More technical than Dominic Cruz, there's no way that ages well. We'll see. I mean, if you look at her last fight out, it was the technical display she showed on the feet, especially for WMMA, was absolutely ridiculous. Like, you don't see that level of like footwork and setups and so on in WMMA. I don't think that, like, except with say like Valentina Shevchenko, right? Like actually very high level female fighter, sure, but otherwise you really don't see it. So I am very excited for her trajectory, and if she keeps improving, I do think she's going to be very good because she's pretty young right now from what I know as well. All right, now we get into the fights that people will actually be picking opposite sides on. Let me put up the poll for this. All right, so far, looking pretty close to the odds. Very mild favoring for Sabatini. Misclicked? Okay. Okay, now we're back to a 50-50. Yeah, this is matching the odds pretty accurately so far. We've had the odds slightly favoring Sabatini pretty much, even though I think that Chepe opened as a bit of a favorite. So one thing that I will say about this fight is that it is a rematch technically. They fought, I think, 7 years ago, so I'm not really going to factor that in. Chepe won the first fight by split decision. Love this matchup? Yeah, same. Sabatini because he's a little more handsome, to be fair. Alright, I'll leave it open another like 10 more seconds, but it seems like we have close to 50-50 with a very mild favoring to Sabatini. Oh, 50-50. Alright, I'll end it here. Okay, we straight up got a 50-50. So, yeah, I guess people are extremely split on this fight, which does make sense. So, Sabatini is basically a pure submission wrestler, in the sense that he's not going to like pull guard or anything that you have to worry about in terms of trying to find a submission there. But he's wrestling to find a submission, not to land ground and pound or really even to control. He did control a lot last fight, but that's also kind of because Brady just didn't do anything. In general, he would love to get you in a position where you make a mistake and then he jumps for some type of submission. He is going to use the single leg to try to get you to expose the back, and then he will jump on the back and lock up the body triangle instantly. That's basically his favorite go-to, and I do expect him to try to do it here as well. He's going to kick a lot on the outside to try to make his opponent overextend, and then if they respond with their own kicks, he'll grab those kicks and try to take them down there. His boxing is like fundamental-ish, but his chin is not the greatest, so if he gets hit by pretty much anything, that's a risk for him. So he definitely does not want to be in the striking longer than he needs to be. Chepe, on the other hand, is whenever he's going to wrestle, he's going to try to lock his hands on the double leg, but because he takes time in the takedown, he tends to give up position for a guillotine. So even though if he can secure the position, he gets more control because of that, it is a little bit risky. When he's against the fence, he's going to use judo throws, which is how he ended up inadvertently breaking Jenkins' arms. His goal is basically to make fights as ugly as possible. His technique is super reckless and aggressive, but he's going to keep switching between striking and grappling to such an extent that it confuses people and they really don't know what to defend. He'll also mix between the overhands and the shots so that you end up eating the overhand if you try to defend the takedown and vice versa. He pumps the jab out, but it's a very stiff jab. There's no real fluidity in it. He has gotten taken down off of kicks before, so it is definitely something I expect Sabatini to try to focus on. My pick for this fight is going to be Sabatini by submission. Even though it's always a risk that Sabatini gets chinned, because he just cannot take damage, it feels like. Chepe being extremely erratic is going to be a problem, in my opinion, who's against someone who's looking for one opportunity to get a position and immediately lock up a submission. People also don't really look closely at Sabatini's record because, yes, he only has 2 UFC wins since the Diego Lopez fight, but he has a lot more grappling wins in the same time. He's been extremely active between MMA and submission grappling. So he's on, I believe, like a 7-fight win streak if you include the 2 of them, with some very good wins in there over like some welterweights as well. So I expect Sabatini to have such a great advantage if Chepe makes one mistake, and I do think Chepe will probably make that mistake because he is very spazzy in how he fights. Chepe UD is the way to go. I could see it, but I'm not picking it. I love this channel. Do you do this full time? Thank you. I do MMA related stuff full time. YouTube isn't necessarily the full time, but between this, Instagram, and some other stuff I'm working on, it is most of my time. Yes, I don't have another job right now. Chepe is a scrambling maniac, and I think Sabatini can take advantage of that. Yeah, exactly. Has he gave his thoughts on JDM versus Islam? I have not yet. I will be doing that last. Okay, so first plug for my betting stuff. If you guys are betting on this card and you're not using my service yet, we have a great betting community with a lot of algorithms to help you bet, and you of course get my like leans and bets and such in the service. So if you guys are betting, we're up over 250 units on the year. We've hit 2 plus 25,000 parlays in the last few months. So the link is at the end of the description. Feel free to sign up, ask me questions and so on, and hopefully we do great there again. Alright, going on to Daukaus versus Mearshart. So I'll put up another poll quickly here. Poll is up. So far, 100% for Daukaus. Now 91%. A lot of votes came in very quickly on Daukaus here. Daukaus by sub is my favorite bet for this one. Fair. GM3 will show levels. Maybe. Legendary GM3 is looking pretty washed. He is getting older, I will say that. And GM3 by round 3 sub is my go-to pick on all his fights, even if he has no path to victory. Fair. I have no prediction. I barely know both of these guys. Fair enough. It happens. Daukaus came back to the UFC with his win over Michel Pereira, if that strikes anything in your head. But if you didn't see that fight, then I get it. Why doesn't it list age? I have no idea. I'm probably going to be doing my own graphics at some point, especially when we have, like, say, 200-ish people in here. Then I'll have, like, the actual justification to spend time on that. But yeah, these graphics are not the best, the auto UFC ones. All right, I'll end the poll here. Okay, so one rule that I have, which in the future I may have to change, but for now we will keep up, is that if in a fight I have one of the fighters following me. I don't make an official prediction on it because it definitely could be biased. So I will give a breakdown of both of these fighters and how this fight could play out, but I'm not going to give a final prediction. So Kyle Daukaus he started as a grappler, and he only had submissions in his career, but his striking has started to evolve a lot, and his last 2 fights have been won by knockout, I should say. So he's definitely getting more reliance on that skill set, and his hooks and overhands and the angles he throws them at have improved significantly. His movement isn't spectacular, but the boxing and leg kicks are like very technically thrown. So it's just his style to not have much movement. He's a very static fighter. That is what it is. His right hook, which is his lead hook, is very dangerous right now, and it's how he got his last win. And I think even the win before that may have started via right hook as well. For takedowns, he tends to start on the double leg, then he'll just start switching between singles, doubles, and throws until he gets you down. So even though his shot is pretty reliably double, how he finishes it varies a lot. On the ground, he's going to look up for a lot of ground and pound. He's not going to really chase this up, but then once you give up the back or just position for the darce, he'll go for the rear naked choke or darce immediately. A lot of his wins have come via darce. His nickname is the Darce Knight, so you know what he's going to be aiming for in most of the time. So GM3 on the other side uses body kicks a lot to set up his takedowns. His punching is a little bit slow, but it's also fairly technical. So he doesn't have like the craziest gaps in his striking. We saw that against Reiner de Ridder, where GM3 was at a power disadvantage. Whenever Reiner landed, it hurt him a lot more. But GM3 was outstriking him for most of the fight because his boxing is actually somewhat technical. He is just going to focus on using the 1-2s at range, not overextending wildly and so on. He will let you take him down and then try to reverse position from there. He used to shoot a lot on single legs. Now he's a bit more focused on double legs. The GM3 classic is that he will not do great early in fights. He's a very slow starter, but as his opponent starts to gas, he will start taking over because he's usually not going to gas until unless he's been doing a lot of scrambling in the fight, and then he'll lock up a late round 2 or early round 3 submission. So as I was saying, I won't give an official prediction on this fight, but it is definitely going to be an interesting fight. If GM3 is to lose this, that may unfortunately be the wrap of his career here. If Daukaus is to lose this, then I guess we know that Michel Pereira is really bad because Daukaus made him look terrible and so on. So that might be the end for Michel Pereira if that happens. All right, we are through the early prelims. As I was saying before this started, I basically have no context on this guy, so I'm going to give my breakdown for Wellmaker, and then we will just move on, because I don't know how to form a prediction when I don't even know who this guy is, in all honesty. So, regarding Malcolm Wellmaker, he is known for the hook finish, throwing right and left hooks, but his distance management and good hard jabs are how he usually sets it up. He throws a lot of calf kicks early, and more recently has started sprinkling in the body kicks. He uses the calf kicks and the body kicks to start setting up the hooks. So unlike fighters who are like very reliant on one technique and just keep going to it, he is very good at disguising it, even if it is how he finishes the fight. Now, the biggest problem I have with him is that defensively, he relies a lot on head movement and just footwork in general. It's kind of strange for having a boxing stance, because he'll move backwards a lot, which is kind of something you'll see more so in like a karate stance and such, but he'll move backwards with his hands down, and like if you throw a combination at him and get past the first counter, you could definitely land on him. One other massive criticism I have of him is that sometimes he literally closes his eyes when someone throws at him and he wings a counter, which I really don't like. And it's like, I know he hasn't been in the sport for the longest period of time, and that's sometimes a consequence of that, but keeping your eyes open is definitely important at the higher levels, because you have to be able to adapt very quickly. His stance switches help him blend the jab and hook combos, because you don't know if he's going to be what hand is going to be in the front to throw the jab or the hook. He will shoot takedowns. He has on the regional scene, and he did shoot one, I believe, in his Contender Series fight, but it's unproven how well he does with takedowns at a higher level. while he is good in terms of setting it up, he is also a little bit predictable, and you know that he's going to try to go to the check hook to end the fight. So always keeping your hand up to guard against that is definitely a good idea against him. In terms of who I would have picked if he was fighting Hadon still, I was going to pick Wellmaker TKO, but I was also very tentative in doing so, because I thought that Hadon was the better pure boxer, and potentially if he pushed Wellmaker back and slipped the check hook, that he may have been able to knock Wellmaker out as Wellmaker dropped his hands. Ethan is a power puncher that pressures a lot from the small tape I've seen. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, so Hadon has no power. Hadon has some power. I wouldn't say he has crazy power, but if he lands clean, he can definitely put someone away. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that because they're kind of investing in Wellmaker now, I doubt they're going to give him someone who they think can beat him. I also saw that Wellmaker opened at a massive favorite, like -1,000 or something ridiculous. So I'm assuming they're giving him a layup, even though I don't know anything about him. All right, we'll get into the poll for this fight. Now, something I will say about this fight as well, as you guys are making your predictions in the polls, is that this is also technically a rematch. It did happen a long time ago. I forget what exact year. Cortez won by split decision. In all honesty, it was kind of a robbery. I thought Blanchfield should have taken it, but it is what it is. Hadon broke his foot. Interesting. I think Hadon was a very valid dog, but his defense on crushing is very poor. I thought Wellmaker could have capitalized. Yeah, with Wellmaker versus Hadon, whoever anyone picked, I feel like you could make very valid arguments for it. Skip female fights. But look at every fight here. Blanchfield, I thought, won their first fight and hasn't proven much more since. Valid. My wife winning, fair. I feel like Cortez just isn't interested in fighting. That's a fair take. She's been doing a lot of media, and sometimes that means they're not training as much. Erin sometimes looks pretty amateur, but consistently finds a way to win outside the Manon fight. Yeah, I know what you mean. Oracle, why'd you have to flatline me in sparring last Wednesday? It was my trial session. Trial by fire, we'll call it. Did you go over GM3 versus Daukaus yet? I got here and I don't know the card order. Yes, I did go over GM3 versus Daukaus. So with the GM3 fight, because GM3 follows me, of course, I don't make a prediction on fights where someone follows me. But the breakdown was basically GM3 is going to have to take it later in the fight and try to find a submission there. Daukaus has gotten much better boxing over time, so he's probably going to try to look to establish his game early. Do you think Ankalaev beats Pereira in a rematch, assuming they're both healthy? No. So after seeing that Pereira is not just too old and he actually is fine, I'm pretty confident Pereira would destroy him in another fight. All right, we will close the poll here. We have 75% on Blanchfield. All right. So we'll start with the breakdown on Tracy Cortez. For her takedowns, she likes to catch kicks a lot for this. Now, it's something that especially works well in WMMA because they will throw a lot of kicks without setup, so it kind of just gives you the opportunity to do so. Otherwise, she is mainly looking for double legs. She'll shoot at distance and try to bully you to the fence, then get you down from there. On the feet, she is mainly looking for straight punches and calf kicks, fair amount of jabs. Her boxing is a little bit underrated in my opinion. Even though her activity is not the highest, it is relatively clean in terms of how she punches. Sometimes she feints the takedown and then throws the two to try to throw you off. Once it's on the ground, she will chase subs a bit in recent times. She used to be more of a control grappler, but now she is really more comfortable chasing the sub and going for the back. And she will also look for damage on top, but she's not the most powerful puncher of all time, so that's kind of just going to open up opportunities and score, not really finish the fight. Her movement itself is not very spectacular, so even though her boxing is somewhat fundamental, she's not like exactly going to slip a strike and then rip or anything. It's just, okay, just in terms of punches, she's doing okay. Blanchfield, on the other side, is a lot of pressure, regardless if it's on the feet or the ground. She's just going to keep walking forwards at pretty much all time. She is the sloppier striker, but she does have a lot more diversity. She throws a lot more hooks than Cortez does, and she'll throw kicks to all targets while pushing forwards. She really likes getting her hands locked for the takedowns, and then from there she tries to like basically get into a position where she can control for the rest of the round if she needs to, or she'll transition to a sub. In a fight where it looks like it's going to be close, she'll be a lot more willing to hold on to the control time, but if she is comfortably ahead or if she is behind, then she will really chase for the sub more so. And if you give her any opportunity for the guillotine, she will lock it up pretty much instantly. The Furo fight was on the ground for about 5 seconds in round 1, and Blanchfield almost had a fully locked in guillotine that time, and Furo like completely avoided the ground like the plague for the rest of the fight. For this fight, it is interesting because I understand the people who are arguing for Cortez saying that she is the cleaner boxer. That is a possibility. However, I think that Blanchfield's pressure is going to be a problem because she can either force a shot out of Cortez if Cortez can't deal with the pressure, get a takedown herself, and whenever the fight is on the ground, Blanchfield is going to have a pretty sizable advantage. I do think she can reverse positions even if Cortez does get a takedown, if not find a submission herself. I do think this is more likely going to go to a very close decision, but I definitely have to give the edge to Blanchfield there, and she definitely has the finishing upside. Like, if she were able to lock up a guillotine when Cortez tries to bring the fight to the ground, I would not be shocked in any way whatsoever. So I'm going to say Blanchfield wins at 29-28 here, with a fight that probably ends up being mostly grappling, but Blanchfield has a few like threats, ends up with more control time, and so on. What's up, Oracle? Just got in, hope the stream goes well. Thanks. Glad to see you here. I swear the only people who actually like Cortez are low-key gooners. Fair. Hot take, Cortez robbery decision. They've been pushing her like they pushed Duran, but I feel like Tracy's going to get the nod. I wouldn't be the most shocked, but I don't think it's going to happen. Alright. Now we get into a fun one. Kopylov versus Gregory Rodriguez. I'll put the poll out. This fight has definitely gotten strong reactions from the community in terms of who they think is going to win. I'm very interested to see what you guys think here. Right now we got Robocop at around 75%, but it keeps fluctuating a little bit. Kopylov is much faster and cleaner striker, maybe. Kopylov is so capable of outstriking Robocop, possible. Accidentally picked copy, fair, it's alright. Robocop stopping, I assume you mean stomping? Oddness for a middleweight hooper. Copy is just too sloppy on the feet when things don't go his way. I feel like he'll get TK'd, maybe, we'll see. Alright, so we were at 70% for Robocop. I'll end this in about 10 seconds. Alright, so we are going to end at the 70% for Robocop here. So, we'll start with Kopylov for the breakdown. He has a slightly risky striking style because he keeps his hands low a lot. However, this does help a little bit for his takedowns because his hands are already there to either down block or grab the underhooks and so on. He will circle on the outside and rely a lot on his head movements, once again because of the fact that his hands are down all the time. He's going to throw a lot of jabs and a lot of body kicks. Like basically his weapons or his goal is to continuously poke at you until he wears you down. His takedown defense is extremely good early. You have to exhaust him. Like I think Fluffy went like 1 for 9 on takedowns on Kopylov in round 1, which is pretty crazy, especially seeing what Fluffy has done since then. So I would not expect anyone to really be taking him down with ease unless it's like Chimaev. Technical boxing can cause him problems because if you can close the distance and start to suffocate him while lighting him up, he doesn't really have a great response because he is a bit outgunned in terms of power sometimes. On the RoboCop side, he is very inconsistent in how he fights. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing because he is adaptable to his opponent, but sometimes he pressures, sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he grapples, sometimes he doesn't at all. You don't necessarily know what version of RoboCop we're going to get. He is going to be doing one of his, 5 different strategies, basically. Offensively, with his hands, he's extremely powerful. He's been throwing more combos where he basically tries to catch you with a third punch. He is not really going to respond to what his opponent is doing. Most of his combos are thrown proactively, but he has the power to put you out, and he has enough cardio to do it for at least 3 rounds. So cardio is not really going to be an issue in a 3-round fight here. The biggest problem with his offense, again, is that there's no setups. So if you are very defensively minded, you can definitely evade his combos, reset, and then just land more volume on him. He's not very defensively responsible. Besides even the Cannonier fight, which I don't even fully attribute to defense because it's more so he fatigued and then started getting lit up. He got his face split open from a knee from Njokuanu, I believe, and in a lot of other fights, he's just gotten hit with massive shots for basically no reason. This, of course, cost him against Bruno, where he basically walked into a massive, I think, left hand and got flatlined off of that. So this is probably my most controversial pick of this week, despite the odds being fairly close. I am going to have to go with Kopylov here, because I don't see enough educated striking for Rodriguez to make me think that he's going to be able to catch Kopylov on the feet. He's not going to be able to take him down, I'm pretty confident, so I don't think that's going to be a factor here. And I think that the difference between, say, Kopylov and Hermansson is that Kopylov's strikes are going to cause an impact. So Rodriguez was okay just not defending anything against Hermansson and getting lit up by the numbers until he found the shot. If he's eating body kicks repetitively from Kopylov, and there are going to probably be instances for that to happen, it is going to start to wear on him until he no longer has the power to put Kopylov out. So unless he catches Kopylov early, which is definitely possible, I'm not saying that Kopylov is definitely going to win this fight, but unless he catches Kopylov early, I do think that by round 2, early round 3, his body is going to start really giving out on him, and then he's going to get finished from there. So I'm going to say Kopylov round 3 TKO based on body kick accumulation, just because Rodriguez is not technical enough on the feet. RoboCop also has a lot of scar tissue. That is true. He bleeds very easily. He has all the blockhead qualities minus the chin, pretty much, yeah. Wasn't Hermansson lighting RoboCop up? Yes, he was. I don't really rate kill fighters, all of them just seem mid. Fair. Kopy looked horrible last fight, might just be Costa's style though. So I was perfectly fine with how Kopy looked in his last fight because I expected Costa to beat him. Because Costa's boxing is a lot more educated than Rodriguez. So he has the pressure and the power to hurt Kopy with a much more educated mindset. The other thing I like for Kopy here is that had he gone into this fight without fighting Costa, I would actually be more worried for him. But the fact that he had that loss and he knows okay, I need to be able to deal with this technical boxing a bit more efficiently, I think that really helps him here. Because Rodriguez is in many ways, besides the wrestling, which I don't expect to be irrelevant, just a worse version of Costa. Also get on debate with Kenny, you're going to lose some brain cells but gain a whole new fan base. I'm open to it. I just don't necessarily know how to contact these people. I can't pick anyone who lost to 2025 Costa to beat RoboCop. Costa looked good though. It wasn't, in my opinion, that Kopylov looked bad. I thought that Costa really looked good there. RoboCop or Costa? I pick Costa. Greatest MMA analyst here, by the way, except main fight picks. Thank you. I did get 4 main events in a row though, so we will see. Do you think RoboCop can walk into a left straight shot? He did that against a bum on Dana White's Contender Series and Bruno. I think it's going to affect him more than it will against most people. It won't flatline him like it did against Bruno most likely, but it will start wearing on him, which is why I think the accumulation TKO will happen. RoboCop just lost the 2025 Cannonier for the guy who said that. That is very true as well. So we'll see what happens here. This is going to be a very important fight for the trajectory of both of them. And yeah, I'm leaning Kopylov round 3 TKO, but we'll see what happens. Nickal versus Adolfo Vieira. This is going to be interesting. I will put up the poll. Yoel or Fluffy? I'd probably pick Yoel. I don't think Fluffy's defense is good enough. As much as I hate Bo, I think he wins this easily. Fair take. We'll see. Yeah, we have 78% for Nickal so far. It seems like most people agree with you. Yeah, we're just staying around the 80% mark for Nickal. I'll leave it open another like 10-15 seconds. Down to 76%, but still pretty dominant. Alright, we'll end it here. So Nickal, 76% of you guys think that, 77% rather, think that Nickal will win. Okay. So we will start with Adolfo Vieira. On the feet, he is very jab and calf kick dependent. He knows that he's not a striker though, so he's not going to go for anything complicated, which is good for him because he's not overextending himself a lot. His biggest problem defensively on the feet is that he struggles with fast looping shots. Vieira is very slow twitch, so if he gets you down, he can basically grind and manipulate your body very slowly until he gets a submission. But on the feet, it causes a bit of a problem with the reaction time. So for example, Brundage was able to just spam looping shots until he landed an overhand that almost finished Vieira. So that is definitely a big weakness there. He will shoot in on pretty much anything, whether it's a single leg, a double leg, just jumping on your foot and then try to transition from there. He is definitely more of a chain wrestler, so he doesn't care if he gets the first shot. He just wants to get you against the fence and then continue transitioning. He is very fine with letting his opponent get back to the feet, just so he can lock his hands a bit better and then take him down again. On the ground, he is mainly going to work towards an arm triangle or a rear naked choke. He seems to actually prefer the arm triangle over the rear naked choke interestingly, but I think that is because of his like slow twitch, very muscle like oriented grappling strategy almost. Bo Nickal, on the other hand, on the feet is basically just going to spam the hooks and overhands. He doesn't really throw straight shots at all. He will use the looping shots to set up takedowns though, so there is some intelligence in that arguably, because he will throw the overhands enough times that you start thinking about the overhands and then he just grabs the ankle pick from there and so on. He has struggled to use his wrestling against the fence. In the center, it is very explosive, but even Jamie Pickett against the fence was able to defend takedowns, which isn't a great sign. If he does get you down, he will jump for submissions very recklessly, which was arguably the beginning of the end against RDR, because he was doing okay in that fight. Then he decides to try to grab a guillotine against a grappler, ends up on bottom, can't do anything for the rest of the round, and then basically gets exhausted and finished with the body shots. So just very low fight IQ move there. I don't know if that's going to be a regular thing or that was just arrogance playing into that and so on. Nickal, the biggest problem for Nickal transitioning from wrestling to MMA is that he was kind of a chain wrestler in wrestling. So he wasn't just someone who was going to just shoot on a blast double and get you down very quickly like Jordan Burroughs or something like that. But in MMA, he doesn't know how to chain wrestle with the fence. So it takes away a lot of his skill set very quickly, which is in my opinion why he's going to struggle so much and probably not get that far in his career unless he changes things very dramatically. However, despite all my Nickal criticism and how much I trash on him, he should probably knock out Vieira, because he is relatively fast and explosive with his hooks. Vieira is not going to be able to throw anything on the feet that is going to like bother him in any capacity. And knowing that Vieira is going to react slowly to that stuff, it'll eventually catch him and probably put him out. Even if Nickal cannot knock out Vieira, he could probably outpoint him because I don't see Vieira taking Nickal down. And if Nickal really wants to, he could probably take down Vieira, although that would probably be a very stupid thing to do here. So Nickal TKO is my pick. I wouldn't be shocked with a boring Nickal decision where he just jumps around and outpoints him by throwing a few overhands once a minute. But yeah, I mean, as much as a lot of people want to see Nickal lose, I don't think this is the fight he's going to lose. Vieira training with the fighting nerds is interesting since it will most likely be a striking fight, but I think Bo can land the bigger shots. Yeah. Vieira emails his punches to you pretty much. Adolfo Vieira admitted on a Brazilian YouTube channel that he's scared of fighting. Makes sense as he's a BJJ guy. Seems like a KO decision for Nickal. Fair. I want to see Nickal add some moves to his striking arsenal other than a left hook, overhand right, and leg kick. Yeah, that would be nice. Did you hear Nickal said he'll retire if he gets put on the prelims again because he's not a prelim fighter? I did not hear that, but yeah, he's definitely arrogant to say the least. I have a question. So should people make picks off overall picture in fights, like better BJJ, better wrestling, better kickboxing, or look and analyze specific segments and weaknesses like micro? Both are big factors in my opinion. You can't just go one or the other, especially if you want to be very accurate. If Bo loses this, he has to just retire from MMA and go back to wrestling. I agree. Would you ever open an MMA gym? It's possible, but it's very expensive, so I don't know. Alright. So we are done with the prelims, on to the first card of the main card. First fight of the main card. I'm putting the poll up now. Starting at 93% for BSD, 94% for BSD. Very one-sided start there. Hypothetically, if Bo figures out chain wrestling, do you think he beats Chimaev? I mean, even his striking is just not up to Chimaev's level, even though I don't even rate Chimaev striking that highly. So, I mean, Bo would have to do a lot of work to get to a point where he could beat Chimaev. BSD 82% now. Down to 80%, coming down a little bit, but still pretty high here. We'll leave this open for around 10 more seconds, then get into the breakdown. I meant to put Dariush, it's alright. I do not remember integrals that well, Stilly. Alright, we're going to end it. It is around 80% at the end of the poll. Bo Nickal versus Alex Pereira, that would be Alex Pereira very easily. Alright, so we will start with Dariush. He has a massive emphasis on his left kick. Now, I do think this is an underrated part of his game. His left kick is very powerful and forces people to keep their arms near the body because he will just blast that continuously. At this point in his career, he is very slow. People talk about BSD being slow. Like, no, Dariush is slow. BSD is not that slow. Dariush was never fast, but it does feel like, especially in his last two fights, that he is slowing down a little bit further. He will sling the left hand, and he tends to throw in combos. His combos aren't like the most technical combos you're going to see. It's kind of like he starts the combo with slinging the left hook, and then kind of just throws wide hooks in the pocket and stuff like that. But his head movement is relatively good, so despite him being slow, he is still actually more defensively responsible than people would expect. His wrestling more so relies on timing and progressive positional changes than actual speed and such, because he doesn't have the speed to do so. But he is very accurate in terms of how he times every single transition in wrestling and grappling. That's what makes him the best anti-wrestler in the division, and honestly, one of the better wrestlers. It is very hard to wrestle against him because he knows exactly when to move, when to transition his weight, and so on. On the ground, in recent times, he is not the most dangerous. He will land a little bit of grounded pounds, but he doesn't generate the most power, and his last submission was quite a long time ago, so he doesn't seem like the submission threat that maybe he once was. His chin also is, of course, not great. Getting dropped by Moicano is not the best look of all time. Moicano does have slightly underrated technique in the boxing, but he's never had that much power, so not really something you want to see. BSD is also very reliant on the left kick. but instead of just throwing it to the body and head, when they are both in southpaw stances, which this will be, he will start throwing it to the calf more often. He will push you against the fence or use kicks to get you to raise your guard and try to shoot under it and such. He will be a little bit too ambitious in the grappling at times, so he can lose positions. Against Rufi, for example, he did end up on his back twice, I believe, because he really tried to take the back faster than he should have instead of just making a slow progression and such. His clinch game is the most underrated aspect of his game, in my opinion. It was absolutely destroying Poirier in the pocket in the clinch rather, with knees and elbows. He landed like 3 or 4 elbows on Poirier in a row that looked like it got Poirier pretty hurt. So a lot of people are focusing on like, oh, okay, how is this going to look if it's on the ground or at distance? I think the clinch is where we may end up and where the fight will probably end. So I am going to take BSD by TKO. I think he just gets Dariush into the clinch because Dariush is not going to really be able to take him down from the clinch, in my opinion, and I don't see him being able to work out of it that easily. And once he's there, he's just going to light up Dariush with elbows. And even if like they trade elbows or something like that, BSD is just so much more durable at this point and definitely hits harder. So I feel like BSD would have to fight this fight very stupidly to lose it. I understand that there's a path to victory for Dariush. If for some reason BSD decides he's going to try to grapple and submit Dariush, okay, yeah, maybe Dariush just out-wrestles him for 15 minutes. But now that BSD is working with Nicholas Ott, I feel like their game plan is going to be like, okay, let's just not give Dariush what he needs to win, stay at distance or in the clinch, disengage, we can always go back to fighting like at range, there's no real problem here, until we find the kill shot. So I'm going to say BSD round 1 TKO by elbow. Hot take, healthy BSD beats Poirier. It's possible. His defense was not the best that fight, but it is definitely possible. Y'all remember when Beneil Islam was the fight to make? Yeah. Are you thinking BSD under 9 minutes? I mean, I'm thinking round 1, so yeah. BSD also said his new team has been prepping him for game planning a lot better, and I think Rufi fight really showed that. Yes, I agree. Nicholas Ott, from what I know, and I don't want to jinx it, but from what I know, seems to be like a very intelligent coach. What he's done with Imavov and BSD has been very impressive. Dariush gets dropped by a gust of wind. As long as BSD keeps it on the feet and pressure his opponent like he always does, he should comfortably win. Yeah, I agree. Dariush looks like my late grandfather fighting when he was a grandfather god. Do you think southpaw and southpaw dynamic affects anything? To an extent. I know that both of these fighters would rather face an orthodox fighter, but I do actually think that it's worse for Dariush than it is for BSD, because BSD is very comfortable just using the calf kick instead then. We saw that against Poirier in the first round, while Dariush really wants access to the body kick. Not gonna lie, Dariush low-key looked trash in his last fight, with all due respect. Yeah, I agree. Like, that was one of those fights where you're like, both of you should probably retire right now, and you're gonna get destroyed in your next fights. Please at least pretend Leon will win when you predict that fight we all know you're gonna pick. Been following on Instagram for a while, had no idea you had a YouTube. Welcome. Glad to see you here. And yeah, I do need to put more work into advertising the YouTube sometimes. Alright, I will put up a poll for this one as well. This fight is going to be more interesting than I feel like the discussion around it has made it seem. Starting with 75% for Prates. I dropped a little bit. Prates is my favorite fighter. I'm hoping KO. Fair. It's insane McConico fought for the belt in January. Yeah, that's why I honestly just don't consider that a title defense. Like, McConico should have been nowhere near a title shot. Like, and I feel like McConico in the past was underrated, and then all of a sudden it was just, I don't know. Leon is going to shock the world. I know it's crazy, but there is this crazy bias for Carlos. Possible. I think Leon could impose his wrestling, but I don't think he will impose his wrestling. Fair. Leon is good. He's actually so good. He just has bad coaching and game planning. I don't think it's just his coaching, because if his coaches have screamed at him to do certain things and he just doesn't sometimes. I think it's just his fight IQ is not there for whatever reason. Go debate Kenny and do some shorts, you'll get a lot. I can look into trying to contact him and setting that up. We will see. Armin single-handedly ruined Islam's legacy unintentionally with one pullout, and that is somewhat true. Alright, we are going to close the poll at around 70% for Prates, I believe. Alright, let's get into the breakdown. So let's start with Leon Edwards. He does have a very diverse striking game, but generally speaking, he needs to get his kicks going to have success. His kicks are the most powerful techniques he has. He doesn't really hurt people with his hands, especially in recent years, but he definitely can cripple you with a body kick, or of course the head kick that we've seen. He'll wait for overextensions on jabs to try to time his lead hook, but it's a very wide lead hook, and the problem is this has cost him a few times, because the sequence against Nate Diaz, even though in the moment it was like, why would Leon do that? Because he just threw like the looping lead hook and then just got countered by Diaz's cross and got rocked pretty badly. But after looking at more of his tape, that's actually a very normal thing for him. So if you throw the one and you kind of stagger your two a little bit after it, he'll try to counter with the hook and then he'll end up getting caught by the cross. A lot of his problems is that he'll back straight up to the fence if you pressure him, and he really just does not like continuous pressure, especially if you have reasonable defense as you move forwards. He has a very good clinch, but for some reason has not looked to establish it in like 4 or 5 years, so I can't even really like factor it in that much. The biggest debilitating factor for Edwards is that he is stupid. He shot a takedown against Brady for no reason. He decided not to throw elbows on Belal when he had him on the ground for no reason, and he probably could have finished Belal there, or maybe gotten a 10-8 and gotten the draw. So Edwards is one of those fighters who has the skill set to always win fights, just decides not to use it. It is very strange to watch. Prates, on the other hand, very dangerous Muay Thai striker, of course. He is especially dangerous when he's moving forwards. He will look to time the cross or to time a knee moving forwards. Those are basically the only two weapons he really likes using, but he uses them very efficiently. On the back foot, he does struggle, especially when people blitz in. He has improved his angles a little bit, but we haven't really seen it applied when someone is blitzing in like Gary was. We only really saw it applied with more of the steady pressure like Jeff Neal was applying. So I would want to see how he does against that, but it won't be a factor in the fight against Edwards. Edwards is not going to blitz. He has solid body kicks. That's probably the most underrated part of his game, is that if he's like in neutral territory, let's say, if he's not able to push you back, but you're not pushing him back continuously, he will just blast body kicks, and that will force you to try to make a move, and then he can punish you from there. His takedown defense is very fundamentally solid. So a lot of people have been saying that they think Leon can just out-wrestle him for 3 rounds. I won't say this is impossible, but I do think that if Leon is going to get takedowns here, he has to really be setting them up with kicks in his hands and such, because if he just shoots blind shots on Prates, it is not going to work. Like, Prates has like 80-something% takedown defense. It is extremely solid. I think he even took down Magny after Magny tried to take him down like 5 or 6 times just to make a point. I will have to take Prates by TKO. I'm going to say round 2 TKO for Prates. However, again, betting against Edwards is always nerve-wracking, or even picking against him, I should say, because if he just decides to show up, he can always win, and there is a path to victory here if he uses his body kicks to start setting up his takedowns and stuff like that. So this is not a crazy confident pick, even though I do think Prates probably does knock him out here. Prates defended like 15 takedowns from Gary. Yeah, that is true as well. How can Leon KO Prates? He could do it with the head kick if he set it up enough with the body kick, but he has to have like an intelligent game plan. Won't it be harder for Leon to throw his body kick since they are both in southpaw? I believe that Leon can switch kick, but we would have to see that more. And if nothing else, he has to be spamming calf kicks. Oracle, do you think Leon is genuinely a dirty fighter or just dumb? I actually think he's just dumb. I don't think he's like actually really intentionally cheating. I think he just does stuff. Sometimes it's illegal and he just doesn't even think about it. He also hurt Gary because of counter wrestling. Yeah, agreed. Oracle, is Pyotr Yan in your top 20 GOAT list of UFC? I haven't really thought about top 20. I couldn't tell you for sure. How would someone beat MVP on the feet? You can either time his blitz as he's coming in, and you have to look at his footwork, but you know exactly what he's going to throw if you look at his feet. He's very predictable. All right, I will put up the poll for Brady Morales. This is going to be a very interesting fight, and I do think this will probably dictate the next title shot. Usman's been screaming that he has the next title shot. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure whoever wins this, especially if they win it in dominant fashion, should get the title shot. I really hope Sean Brady wins. He's such a cool guy. Fair. So Brady 76%. I'll leave it open for like 10 more seconds, but it seems like he's going to end as the pretty big favorite here. I have no clue how this fight is going to go, to be honest. That's fair. Poirier gets next title shot if Islam wins. I kind of doubt UFC will do that. All right, I will end the poll here at Brady 71%. Now, something that I will say that kind of makes this fight a little bit strange is last fight with Burns and Morales was weird because we're left with the question of, does Morales have a lot of power or does Burns just have zero durability at this point? I am leaning Burns has zero durability at this point. Not that Morales does not have power. I think he has solid power. But I don't think it's that crazy that like a prime Burns would have been put out by that by any means. But we'll get into the breakdown now. So starting with Brady. On the feet, he is going to use a lot of pressure boxing. He's going to extend combos sometimes, but his 1-2s are the cleanest. He can be clipped though, especially because he is very reliant on the high guard, but doesn't really move the high guard. Sometimes his high guard creeps down a little and he still gets countered and so on. He has pretty good cardio when he's moving forwards. However, if you push him backwards, he gasses a lot quicker, which is what we saw against Belal. Every kick he throws, for the most part, is a calf kick, but every once in a while, he will throw a high kick to establish position. It's usually not actually to hurt you, but it's like, okay, throw a high kick and then rush into the clinch as they raise their hands and can't counter for a moment. He has pretty good trips and throws in the clinch, but is mainly going to shoot on the double leg. He will, like other people on this card, throw the overhand into the double leg. When he shoots the double leg, he really likes getting his hands locked, kind of similar to what I was saying with Blanchfield, because he wants to be able to establish like full control and then work for submissions. On the ground, he is kind of similar to Rodolfo Vieira, except with much more dangerous ground and pound. He's very heavy, very slow, but he's going to progress to a position in which he can finish you. Now, with Morales is extremely long and utilizes that to use his long weapons. He's going to be very focused on the jab and calf kick at times. He will lunge in with the jab and the 1-2. So, unlike just throwing from a static position, utilizing his reach, he does get a little bit more distance on it, which can make him a bit more dangerous in terms of he can catch you from positions where you don't think he will. But it does also kind of overextend him, because after he throws the 1-2, now he's at a distance where you can touch him, where if he had just stayed at distance and throw the 1-2 without lunging, he could do it with such a reach discrepancy that you would not be able to touch him back. He does sometimes fade back with his hands down, but because he has such a long reach, he usually can get away with it since it's going to take a long combo for his opponents to get into range. He has wrestling if he feels like it. but he usually does not feel like it. I think he was like an Ecuadorian wrestling champion or something like that, which I don't know how much weight that actually holds, but he at least technically has a skill. With takedowns, he will give his back a lot to try to escape. Now, how that will affect things here could be complicated, because maybe he could use his length to be able to disengage, but if not, he's going to be in a more compromising position. This is a weird fight because I feel like we have so many unknowns with Morales. We've never really seen him tested. But because of the fact that Brady is going to be pressuring so often, and that Morales is probably going to expose his hips when he lunges in, I am going to take Brady, and I'm going to probably take Brady by sub. Because unless Morales has completely changed his striking style and no longer jumps in and completely feeds his hips when he does so, I don't think Brady's really going to struggle for the takedown as much as maybe some people would expect him to. And if Brady's getting an early takedown, the fight's as good as over at that point. Because even if Morales survives the round or is able to get up to his feet, I don't think he's going to be the same person when he does. So I'm going to say Brady by second round guillotine, let's say. Can we skip women co-main events? No, I have plenty to say on it. Plus, Weili is one of my favorite fighters, so I would not skip one of her fights. All of Morales' wins feel like free CPU simulated wins. I know what you mean, yeah. Do you think if a decision here, Gary could steal the title shot with a KO? Yeah, that's possible. If this is anticlimactic and Gary actually has a very good performance, I could definitely see it happening. Hey, TW. Guillotine, yes. I think a mounted guillotine will happen here. How could Morales win? So if Morales is very intelligent in terms of picking up the fact that Brady may try to time him lunging in, he could lunge in except with a flying knee and catch Brady. Now, I haven't seen him do this before, so definitely not a prediction. But if I was game planning for Morales against Brady here, I would be like, okay, maybe lunge in once to give him the look, and then fake the lunge in, throw a flying knee, and try to knock him out like that. If that were to happen, it would be crazy. But just how I would personally game plan. Do you think Prates could get a title shot off a highlight reel? I don't, but I do think he could get a number one contender fight. Gas up to watch this tomorrow. Have a good rest off stream. Thank you. You too. All right, I'll put up the poll for the co-main events. Now, one thing I will say about this fight is I am biased. That being said, I think my breakdown is completely unbiased. You guys will see why. Ooh, Weili starting as a massive favorite here at 80%. I have to go with Valentina. She's one of my favorite fighters ever. Fair. Shevchenko has looked off a bit in her last few fights. Yeah, I get what you mean. Weili staying around 80%. I didn't expect that, because Weili is an underdog right now. Weili's a lock? That might be a little bit excessive, but maybe. Weili's and Shevchenko's recent fights have been absolutely boring, to be honest. I think it was only Weili's last fight was a little bit boring, and she was still trying to get the finish at times, but I do think that, what's her name, just shooting for the leg constantly kind of slow things down. Alright, I'm probably going to close the poll here in like 5-ish more seconds. I expected this to be very split. It is in fact not very split. Okay, ending at 81% for Weili. So let's get into the breakdown. So, starting with Weili. Weili has used a lot more kicks recently. That is one thing I will say that has like developed in her style. She started kicking the calf more, and I think a lot of that was after her camp with Cejudo, because Cejudo tends to really promote doing that in fighters' games. Like Figueiredo was doing that a lot against Moreno after Figueiredo started training with Cejudo. I don't know what it is about Cejudo's camps, but he really favors calf kicks. Weili is very good at punishing opponents when they're overextending. If you kick and you don't set it up properly, she'll put a punch out. If you punch and you overextend, she'll shoot a takedown. She's very opportunistic and very accurate in how she is opportunistic. She used to throw a lot of hooks in the pocket, like a little bit of a hook spammer to some extent, but she has moved away from it a little bit and developed like more fundamentally sound defense. But if she is in a tough fight, she may go back to it because she is more durable than a lot of her opponents and does hit harder than a lot of her opponents. Once she does get a takedown, and she tends to shoot her takedowns with a bit of setup. So again, she'll try to get you to overextend on something and then shoot for the doubler and so on. Once she gets you down, she's just going to start blasting ground and pounds and then try to work for like reverse crucifix and try to get a rear naked choke from there. So her ground game, when she's not fighting a very dangerous wrestler, is like pure offense. It is not just like, okay, we're going to stay here for the rest of the round. She's actively working for the finish 24/7. Her chain wrestling has improved a lot. She, in her second, Joanna fight, that's like basically the first time we really saw her chain wrestle. And she went from basically very simple takedowns where she would just shoot the double leg, and if she didn't get it, she would abandon it, to like chain wrestling Joanna down and blasting shots with wrist control while looking to like get better position and so on. She's very dynamic when she has a reason to be. So the spinning back fist knockout against Joanna was part of her like being opportunistic and so on, but it was just something she pulled out of nowhere that no one expected, including me, to say the least. Weili's biggest weakness on the feet is that she can kind of just dive in if you're not giving her an opportunity. And when she dives in with like a 1-2, she definitely is open to being countered. She isn't like the best at being fundamentally sound with approaching and exiting when she doesn't have an opportunity to enter and exit on. Shevchenko, on the other hand, her stand-up is very Muay Thai oriented. She's going to stand in like the Muay Thai stance and kind of just wait for you to approach. She's very much a counter striker. So both Weili and Valentina do their best striking when they are counter striking. So that's going to make for an interesting matchup on the feet here. She will throw a lot of body and head kicks since she is southpaw. She will, of course, try to use the body kick to open up the head kick, which she did against Jessica Ai and found the knockout there. Her counters off of overextensions are her best attribute in her entire fight game, in my opinion. Her lead hook is usually how she punishes it. If someone extends poorly into the pocket, she will just blast the lead hook and can either rock them, start blooding them up, and so on. She will try to catch kicks or otherwise also time takedowns efficiently, so very similar to Weili in that sense. Her biggest defensive problems are against longer combinations because of the fact that she is very static, and after she throws the lead hook counter, she can be a little bit lost in a sense. On the ground, she is usually looking to get a position to ground and pound. She loves the crucifix. She's not really going to chase submissions, even though they are part of her kit. Now, the reason why I am not confident in either side on this fight is because I can see the path to victory for both of them. On the feet, if Valentina is waiting a lot and forces Weili to jump in with the 1-2, I could see Valentina having a lot of success with the lead hook. If Valentina starts to force the wrestling, or if Weili is able to get an opportunity to shoot on her, I think that Weili's scrambling is a little bit more advanced, and we have seen Valentina have a lot of problems in which she does get out-scrambled, and then either gives up the submission because of that, gives up her back, or ends up being controlled for the entire round. Now, because I don't think that Valentina is going to be able to finish Weili on the feet, and because we do know that Weili is progressing in her wrestling, while Valentina, while not declining, has shown weaknesses there, I am going to lean towards Weili getting a decision win here. I do think we may end up seeing a very close fight, though. I would not be surprised with the 48-47 or even a split decision, but my prediction for this fight is going to be Weili decision. Can Shevchenko head kick KO Zhang like Rose did? I don't think so. Rose has these weird moments where she just pulls something out of like nowhere, where in fights that she should be losing. But Valentina doesn't really have the same attributes to do that. Like, her setups are a lot more basic and are going to be more easily read by Weili, in my opinion. Would Valentina's size advantage mean anything here? It is possible, but it's barely a difference. Like, there's only a 1 inch height difference, and I'm pretty sure Weili will have put on some weight going up a weight class. All right, so we will get on to the main event. I'm definitely emotionally invested in this fight. I don't know why. Weili has always been my favorite female fighter, so hopefully she wins this one. All right, on to the main event finally. I will put up the poll for this. I'm very interested to see what the results of this poll are. Best matchup of the year, fair. I agree with that, actually. Right now, slight edge to JDM at 60-ish%. Yeah, staying at 60%, interestingly. I just can't unsee JDM giving up his neck or back in a scramble. Fair. We'll get to that. Best card of the year in terms of matchups? Yeah, I agree with that, actually. JDM seems to very much be sticking around 59% with you guys. I'll probably close the poll in like 10-ish seconds. Clearly you haven't tapped into the Russian fan base. Yeah, I agree. All right. Yeah, JDM 61% seems like where we're going to end here. All right, now we will get into the breakdown. So I'm going to start with Islam. In terms of the striking, Islam is mainly a counter-striker, and actually kind of similar to Valentina, like 95% of his counter-striking revolves around the lead hook. A lot of his game revolves around hooks in general, more so than I think people understand. When he moves forwards, he will sometimes throw a double jab into an overhand, but if he doesn't do that, he's usually just spamming hooks to try to push you backwards. He prefers to wrestle against the fence. If in the open, he will either try to chain you to the fence or feint high, then shoot low, and then try to get you down from there. Against longer combinations, he's a little bit defensively vulnerable because you know that he's going to throw the lead hook. After that, as if you guys saw in my reel, he will drop his lead hand after he throws the hook, which makes him very vulnerable on that side. And he'll also tend to back up in a straight line, so you can pursue him relatively easily. It's not like he's circling out very efficiently. On the ground, he will let you scramble, and then will try to use your scrambling to get a more advantageous position and then lock up submission from there. He isn't really intense with ground and pound like Khabib was. It's a very different style. We really do not know how he'll look with size added. Now, I will come back to this point when I am doing my prediction on this fight in a few minutes. JDM, on the other hand, we all know is just a very clean boxer. He switches stances and creates angles a lot, and is kind of unpredictable in what he throws. Like, sometimes he will throw like a double left hook and then continue the combination from there, or he'll throw a left hook, switch stances, turn that into a left cross right afterwards. So it's very hard to know exactly what JDM is going to throw in a combo because he has so many options and he has so much nuance in his boxing game. In terms of pure boxing nuance, JDM is probably the best boxer in the UFC. He does mix in kicks to a variety of targets, but it is not his main game plan. He's mainly just using that to make his hands more efficient. Against Belal, he did down block a lot of Belal's takedowns fairly easily, but the other thing he was doing is, again, lowering his hands in the pocket and relying on his head movement to dodge punches in order to make sure that he could either down block more efficiently or grab Belal's, or get like underhooks and pull Belal up after that. So as I was saying, defensively, he's mainly a combination of the high guard and the movement. His high guard is, of course, an educated high guard. It's not like a David Onama high guard. So if he has the high guard up, it is very difficult to hurt him. Now, I fully believe that anyone who thinks they really know who is going to win this fight is either biased or kind of deluding themselves, because there's a lot of unknown factors here. If Islam is much stronger at this weight class, which is possible, there's definitely a chance that he's able to just drag JDM to the ground and find a submission. Like, that would not be shocking. However, there's also the flip side of that. Maybe this added size makes him slower, and it's a lot easier for JDM to evade because of that. Now, a rumor that I have heard out of that camp is that Islam's cardio has been looking concerningly bad given his added size. Now, I'm not positive if this is true or not. If it is, the longer the fight goes, the more it is going to favor JDM. In the pocket, as I talked about in my reel on this fight, we have a real dichotomy here, where JDM's pocket boxing is probably triple what Islam's is. However, if JDM is using the high guard to efficiently pocket box, it definitely opens up Islam just taking him down there. And if he's continuously dropping his hands in the pocket, then Islam has the opportunity to either step back and look for the head kick, which definitely could be a problem for JDM here. JDM is open for the head kicks. Or he could just spam hooks and potentially catch him because of the fact that JDM is semi-reliant on the high guard at times. So a lot of this fight may rely on JDM's head movement. Now, in terms of my prediction, even though I do think this fight is fairly 50-50, I'm going to lean towards JDM TKO. I think that between Islam being a little bit slower, potentially having cardio issues and so on, I think that in the pocket he's going to be at a sizable disadvantage. And I think that there's a more than 50% chance that JDM is able to slip under Islam's predictable lead hook and then just throw a combo that puts him out or severely hurts him to the point that he could finish him from there. The other thing is, if JDM gets a read on when Islam is going to level change, the knee is there, and while I'm less keen on him finding it here than he did against Burns, of course, it's definitely a possibility if Islam starts panic shooting after taking a few shots in the pocket. So I do believe this is a mildly JDM favored matchup, and I am going to say that even though it's a very mildly favored, he makes it look more dominant than that. I'm going to say round 1 TKO for for JDM, round 1 TKO for JDM. But I also would not be shocked if Islam found a submission here or something like that. A lot of people are going to talk about JDM scrambling, opening up submission opportunities for Islam. And there is some truth in that, right? Obviously, scrambling will always open up submission attempts. But also, you need to scramble, right? You can't just not scramble and just stay on your back the entire fight because your opponent might lock up a submission. So working with Craig Jones, I'm assuming they're practicing Darce defense over and over. And people are getting a little bit too high on Islam's Darce, right? It's definitely a weapon, but when he landed the Darce against Makhachev, I have no idea what he was doing. He didn't even try to grab the hand, shoot an underhook, anything you would do to in basic Darce defense. He kind of just let Islam grab the Darce and finish it. It was very strange. So, not that JDM cannot be Darced. He definitely could open it up in a scramble or even give a position for a rear naked choke or arm triangle or something like that. But I do think that his scrambling is a lot more educated than someone like Makhachev. He's very good at hooking his opponent's leg whenever he's getting taken down and such, so they can't establish a body lock or too dominant position. And yeah, I do think that even if he gets taken down, he has a solid chance of getting back to his feet. But this is going to be a very interesting matchup that probably dictates a lot of the meta going forwards, because if Islam loses this fight, I think that we're not going to have another Dagestani champion for at least 5 years, maybe more than 10, because they've kind of been falling behind in terms of how their style functions. We saw this in terms of pure BJJ. Initially, when we saw pure BJJ in the UFC, it dominated because people didn't know how to deal with it. Now, with Dagestani wrestling, it is this very standardized style in which they're looking to chain repetitively and have very predictable things that they chain to. So when you start understanding how to deal with it, you start understanding okay, I'm going to preemptively prevent the body triangle, and I'm going to try to stay off the fence and stuff like that. The efficiency of their style starts very quickly diminishing. Now, obviously, if Islam wins this, it could definitely inspire a lot more of Dagestan to get into MMA, and then they may adapt further, and who knows. But if he loses, then it may be the end for like Dagestani style in MMA for quite a long time. If Islam loses this fight, he might retire. I agree. Yes. So many people getting mad at a round 1 TKO pick like that isn't Islam's only loss. Yeah, exactly. If Islam is at a massive disadvantage in the pocket, I don't think this fight is going to take long. There is a world, of course, in which it goes back and forth, where like Islam takes him down, JDM gets back up, he lands a few strikes, he gets taken down again. Then we end up in like maybe a 4th round situation where it's who has more gas left or something like that. But I do think that seeing Islam's weaknesses in the pocket, if there is the discrepancy that I'm thinking, and JDM is able to find this flow where he's able to use the head movement to not get head kicked and so on, then he'll find the finish. And on the flip side, if Islam ends up having the advantage in the pocket because of takedown threat or the head kick or whatever, then he might find the early finish. What should JDM do on the ground if he's taken down? I mean, just stick to the basics, right? Prevent the body triangle and try to maintain wrist control and then try to get back to the feet from there. Do you think JDM will have better success with straight or looping shots? I think he'll have best success if he mixes them. Where did you hear the cardio rumor for Islam? I can't talk about my source for that, but it is coming out of their camp, I will say that much. There were moments Dustin was piecing up Islam. Now imagine that with welterweight power and more killer instincts. Yeah, I think a lot of the problem for Dustin is he was also terrified of getting taken down, so he really did not open up on the feet. I don't think that JDM is going to have quite the same problem. Now, could that cost him 100%? But if he's able to stay defensively sound, then it will be a benefit for him. Who are you rooting for in this matchup? I like JDM. I'll probably root for him here. Of course, the fact that he made me look like a genius when he outclassed Bilal is definitely good. But, yeah. Hey, HB. Good to see you here. Do you think Islam's chin will be better or worse? He's 190-ish walk around. I could see it being the exact same as he was at 155. It's really hard to know. Like, there's so many unknowns, and that's one of them here. Which fights are you most confident in? Honestly, I mean, probably Kline. This fight doesn't have that many confidence, though. What's the cardio rumor? So there's a rumor coming out of Islam's camp that Islam's cardio has looked like horrific this camp with the added weight. If Islam does turn out to be very strong at 170, how does that change your JDM round 1 TKO pick? I mean, it's impossible to know exactly. I mean, if he's much stronger and he's able to just ragdoll JDM, then that is what it is. Islam could definitely win that way. It's hard to know how any factor is going to affect what in this fight, which is why I think that anyone who's very confident in their pick is just not really thinking. Della Maddalena is overrated. I do not think so. I think that JDM is not at his prime. I agree with that. He's not fully developed yet, I don't think. But his boxing is very clean. BSD ceiling? We'll get to that later. Right now I'm just going to answer questions around this fight. To be honest, it makes sense. And I said that for months, him bulking up to 10 pounds would make his cardio and speed worse. We will see a stronger Islam, but also a slower one. Yeah, exactly. Anonymous rumor. Anonymous rumor is not anonymous to me. sources don't like being disclosed, right? There's a lot of issues around that, so I can't tell you what my source is. I think Belal is more durable than Islam. If he lands half those shots on Islam, he will probably win. I agree with that part, yeah. Belal is definitely more durable than Islam. Over under one fake eyelash falling off in Cortez versus Blanchfield. We'll go under there. I don't think that Blanchfield's going to hit her too hard. Do you know about Danny Green? He's the world champion Australian boxer JDM learned from. I do not know much about him, but that makes sense that he learned from a boxer. How does kickboxing and clinch match up for Islam versus JDM? I mean, kickboxing, obviously, JDM is far ahead if we're talking about pure kickboxing. If we add in takedown threat, how does that affect things? We'll find out. In the clinch, I would say Islam probably has a slight advantage, but I don't think it's anything massive. What do you think is better value, Brady by decision or sub at plus 110, or Weili by KO or decision at plus 135? I mean, if you join the betting service, then I can talk to you there about bets. So I'll plug my stuff again. If you guys are betting on this card and are not using my betting service yet, we're up over like 250 units on the year just on the base algorithm strategy, and we have plenty more tools in there and a great community. So the link is in the description here. Feel free to sign up, DM me questions if you have any, and so on. In my opinion, Islam should have just kept the same size since he's very strong for his weight and also kept his speed. Also easier cut without added muscle. Yeah, that's a fair take. I love JDM, but even Volk isn't picking him by first round TKO. I mean, so what? I mean, coaches don't always know how their fighter's going to win. Getting controlled by Islam for majority of rounds is a bigger concern for me than the sub threat, to be honest. That's a fair take. Like, I could definitely see that happening. It is a problem. I'll take Islam will tap to strikes. He is chinny, not durable at all, grappling overrated, and his feet are small, which is a disadvantage. His feet are small. That's not something I've heard before, but I don't think that he would tap to strikes. I don't think that he's going to quit, but we'll see. Who do you think wins JDM versus Topuria? I would have to look more into the tape for that. Doesn't help Volk's legacy if Islam gets finished in the first as well. That is true. How do you compare Islam to Belal? I think that Islam is better than Belal in most ways. However, I do think Belal has better takedown entries usually, and I do think that he has better cardio and durability. Islam doesn't look good when he has to fight on the front foot and lead dance. The hooks bro is throwing against Charles were comical. Yeah, I mean his striking on the front foot is not very nuanced. I agree with there. How certain or trustable is this source about the cardio? It's hard to say if anything changed, right? It could be slightly outdated, and it is someone's perspective, right? We never everyone's perspective when watching the same things will be a little bit different, so we don't know for sure. Islam could have also overtrained for this fight. He showed up with a black eye and has repetitively said this is the most important fight of his life. Could indicate he trained too much. It's possible. Islam will judo sweep the Aussie and finish him in round 1 or 2 because Jack is going to scramble up, but if he pulls a Dustin, Islam will win via points. I don't quite understand where the judo sweep came from, but I don't think if he's going to land a takedown in the early rounds, it's probably a single leg entry, to be honest. So I don't think a judo throw is going to come into play here, but maybe. Please do a quick pick summary. Yeah, sure. All right. Borschev TKO. Susurkaev TKO. Kline submission. Sabatini submission. I don't make predictions on this fight. I don't know, but I'd assume Wellmaker. Blanchfield decision. Kopylov late TKO. Nickal early TKO. DSD early TKO. Prates round 2 TKO. Brady round 2 submission. Weili decision. JDM TKO. Honestly, Camilo might take down Borschev and get a round 2 sub. I wouldn't be shocked, but Camilo has unimpressed me with everything he has done. I can't pick him. Why don't you make a prediction about that fight? Which fight? BSD ceiling? BSD, I still think could go pretty far, but we need to see exactly how he performs on Saturday. What do you think of Makhachev saying he has 3 different game plans depending on how the fight goes? I mean, that's generally speaking what you want. You want your primary game plan of like, okay, in a fairy tale situation, how does this fight go? Then you have your main game plan of like, okay, a fairy tale situation probably isn't going to happen. What do we do now? And then we have, okay, the game plan isn't working. What do we do if we need to panic? So that makes sense. That's usually how I game plan as well. When you join Premium, how do we ask about bets and your takes on bets? So basically what it does is it adds you to a Discord server that is limited for subscribers, and then you can just ask me anything there, as well as the rest of the community. And we have all the tools in there. How does John do against Armin, Charles, and Islam? I mean, it's hard to say without seeing him fight someone else high level. I'd want to see him fight again. Do you think JDM's going to get exposed by a striker one day? I feel like his style is best against grapplers. It's possible, but I feel like his boxing is very clean. I saw thumbnails of Islam interviews on YouTube that said Islam was saying JDM doesn't have good grappling, that he's not as big threat as Volk. Maybe clickbait, he may be underestimating. It's fair. How many subscribers do you have for the service? I think we're around 150 in the community right now. Dustin did well because he didn't even scramble. It was all hard positions for Islam to finish. Correct, he avoided scrambling a lot, but he's also not the grappler that JDM is. Oracle, how much aura do you have IRL? I think that's very hard for someone to quantify about themselves. Do you think Islam's a dirty fighter? I rewatched his Oliveira and Saryukin fights, and he was fishhooking to set up his judo sweeps. He's definitely grabbed the gloves. He's not the dirtiest in the UFC by any means, but like, has he fouled? Yeah, for sure. Jack is going to scramble? Yeah, but Jack is much more capable of scrambling than Poirier is. Hot take, JDM is a terrible matchup for Hamzat and will submit him early. What do you think? I don't think he would submit him early. Could he beat him? It's possible, but he's not going to submit him, I would say that. How do you see Blank versus Bilal right now? I don't know if you meant Gary. Ian, maybe you meant? How do I see Gary versus Bilal right now? I think Bilal... sorry, I think Gary's going to win. What can JDM do to stop Islam from shooting a takedown altogether? Against Bilal, he was constantly moving, using uppercut feints, head dips to intercept Bilal's level changes. I don't think he's going to be able to stop Islam from shooting altogether, because Islam's going to shoot on the single legs, while Bilal really wants the double leg. So, if Islam wants to lunge on a single leg, he's probably going to be able to do it. I think he just has to make sure that he's staying defensively responsible, moving around, and not letting him get shots off for free. Just joined Group Premium, glad to hear it. I'll see you in the Discord then. Oracle, can you beat up CM Punk? Yeah, probably. Silva versus Emmett, Silva wins. He even grabbed Volk's glove, but Volk just disengaged. Interesting. How do you see cage wrestling exchanges go? Yeah, if Islam can get it to the fence, he's definitely going to have a big advantage there. JDM does not want this on the fence. Anatoly or Rug. I'd go Rug. Like, all Anatoly is just a bunch of steroids pumped into one person. He's not very good. Do you think Borschev is going to beat Camilo? I'm not confident, but yeah, I'm picking him. I think you were the first one to point out JDM level changes in response to Bilal's level changes. Very possible. Thank you. What's the confidence level on Bo? Pretty high, to be honest. I'll probably go for a few more minutes and then wrap up from here. Thoughts on BSD's potential moving forwards in his career? I think it's still pretty high. I think that he has the base skill set. I think he has the attributes. Now working with Nicholas Ott is a very, very good recipe there. Can JDM take away Islam's head kick by simply switching stances? I do think that fighting southpaw for a lot of the fight may be a good idea for JDM, but part of his strengths are that he switches stances, so I don't think he could keep it like entirely contained by doing that. How does JDM versus Prates go? I think JDM can force Prates backwards where he's uncomfortable and then clip him there. Worst welterweight matchup after JDM for Islam? Probably Brady. How did you learn so much about the technical aspect of MMA? I mean, I trained myself, of course, and then I've helped coach other people, and when you're coaching, it definitely helps you see more, and then after that, just studying. I feel like Islam isn't really as much of a cage grappler as someone like Khabib likes to use his pressure and submission game on the ground. He uses the fence more so to get it initially down, but then if it goes into the center from there, he's okay with it. But yeah, I get what you mean. What dictates whether one pro high-level fighter has better cardio than another? If it's fair to assume they both train well, is a genetic difference, maybe PE difference? I mean, genetic difference definitely plays a role, right? Like, Merab just has naturally incredibly good cardio, and then, of course, nurtures it from there. But there's a lot of things. Even how you specifically train will change a lot. Do you think Ilya can have success at 170, or is he just too small? I think Ilya could have success. Are there any books you recommend? Every book has like ups and downsides. For props, I've heard FanDuel has the best odds if you're like American or have access to FanDuel in general. Outside of that, it really depends what you're looking for. They all have pros and cons. What's more likely to happen, JDM by late or early TKO? I'm taking early. A lot of people are saying late, though. Training longer and harder equals better cardio, especially in mountains. Not necessarily, because overtraining is definitely a factor that can hinder your cardio. And if you don't let yourself recover as well, your cardio is actually going to be worse long term. So it's all about balance, but you do need to, of course, train the cardio. Are there any books you recommend? I mean, depends what you're talking about. Like, what type of subject? Have you ever coached someone in the UFC / cornered them? I have not cornered anyone in the UFC yet. Have I helped with game plans for a few people in the UFC? Yes. I always get annoyed when people say a fighter is open to the head kick because of their head movement that applies to everything. You're open to an overhand when you throw a jab. That's not quite the case, though, because you can be especially open to a head kick because of the fact that you're relying on head movement. So, for example, if you're just dealing with punches and you have very good head movement, it's going to be a lot more efficient than if you're dealing with punches and head kicks when you're just using head movement. Do you think Islam could catch him with a head kick? It's definitely possible. Not gonna lie, if Islam gets slept in round 1, it'll be the biggest downfall of a top 10 fighter we'll ever see. Very possible. I'm talking about MMA books to read. I don't know any like MMA books that would be great, to be honest. Mind sharing the weight class the fighters were, and if you can't share the fighter themselves. But I've helped with game planning. If we're talking about with any capacity, then it's different than like, okay, I made their entire game plan for them. But flyweight, lightweight, featherweight, the lighter weight classes for the most part. When JDM sleeps Islam in round 1, he should be pound for pound number 1 immediately. Very, very possible, yeah. Do you think Merab can be the go to the sport by the end of 2026? Only if he moves up, in my opinion. Joined premium and connected to Discord, but only chat is showing up. I don't know what you mean by only chat. If you message people in the Discord, though, they'll help you out there. Just say something there and people will help you. If not, I'll help you when I end stream. If Islam gets the W, who would you favor him over among the welterweight top 5? I mean, if Islam beats Jack, he's going to beat a lot of the welterweight top 5. Maybe just not Brady. Brady would be tough. So how do you think a fighter can use head movement while minimizing the head kick threat? I mean, you could go same stances. If you're going closed stance, then it makes the head kick a lot harder to land. You can, of course, move away from the head kick, but it's not going to be perfect. Like, there's things you can do to minimize it a little bit, but you're not going to get rid of it. Why no predictions about Kyle versus Gerald? Because GM3 follows me on Instagram, so I don't predict fights where a fighter follows me. Honestly, if JDM finishes Islam, they need to start putting respect on Bilal. Fair. Is Usman Nurmagomedov overrated? Yeah, I'm not a fan of Usman Nurmagomedov. I don't think he's very good. Yeah. I mean, despite cheating a lot, he really lost to Hughes. It was like a very dumb decision. It is what it is. Do you think Kamaru could give Islam problems? Not really, to be honest. Maybe like in his prime, but I don't think at this age. Prime Connor or Prime Topuria. Connor's a very bad matchup for Topuria, so I would say Connor. How to counter an aggressive boxer with extended combos like Ilya. I mean, you have to take your opportunities, right? There are opportunities whenever someone like Ilya is going to do something because he loads up on pretty much everything he throws. So you have to make sure you're preemptively slipping it and then look to counter it before he's able to back off. Armin or JDM at 170? JDM. Umar is way better than Usman. Honestly, I think Rafael Fiziev would easily beat Usman. Probably any ranked lightweight would beat Usman Nurmagomedov. I saw someone unironically say Islam was stepping down in comp against JDM like his last fight wasn't against McConico. Yeah, that's a weird take if someone actually thinks that. Armin beats Ilya? No. Armin doesn't really have a chance against Ilya. Armin is so open to the lead hook, he's just going to get destroyed by it. Who's the best boxer in the UFC? If you're talking about pure boxing skill nuance-wise, I'd say Jack. I would say Ilya has better cage cutting, so he has better results sometimes in that sense, but Jack has more like actual nuance in his boxing. Ilya or JDM at 170? I really would have to dig into the tape more and compare them. I'm not confident either way. What do you think all fighters should be adding into their games that they aren't for the most part? Feints. Recap your picks, please. All right, we'll do that one last time because we've done it like twice now, but we'll do it one more time. So we're going Borschev early TKO, Susurkaev early TKO, Kline second round submission, Sabatini first round submission. No prediction. No prediction because I don't know this guy. Blanchfield decision, Kopylov late TKO, Nickal early TKO, BSD early TKO, Prates second round TKO, Brady, we'll say early submission, Weili close decision, JDM early TKO. If Islam loses, he'll fight Topuria in 2026. If Islam loses, I think he retires, in all honesty. Shavkat beats JDM? No. I heavily disagree with that because Shavkat doesn't move his head at all and doesn't like have great defense. JDM could probably put him out with one combo. Shavkat's not very good, to be honest. I think Ian Gary's JDM's hardest fight. It's possible. Retiring without fighting Ilya's crazy work. I mean, it may happen though. Ian low-key wins the rematch against Shavkat. Yeah, I mean, it looked like if Ian hadn't taken the fight on super short notice, he probably would have won. Rank your top 3 median weight MMA gyms. I don't know what you mean by that. You think Prates would KO Shavkat? Yeah, 100%. Do you see Islam getting brutalized and not, or just a not so bad TKO? I mean, I would say the most brutal knockouts are when someone takes a lot of damage first. So if it's a late TKO, that could happen. If it's an early TKO, I think it's going to be more of a flash knockout. And then he'll be back in like a minute. Justin is too washed for Topuria. I mean, Justin at no points in his career would have posed any threat to Topuria, in all honesty. Top 3 gyms in terms of reducing featherweights to middleweights. Honestly, I wouldn't say they're like crazy good gyms right now. I'm not that high on any specific gym because they all have their strengths and weaknesses. All right, I'll do one more promo. if you guys did not hear the first two promos and you're betting on this card, with my service, we're up over 250 units on the year. We've hit 2 plus 25,000 parlays in the last few months. And in general, it's a great community. We have a lot of tools for betting. And yeah, I mean, we do very well there. So if you guys are interested in that and betting on this event, the link is in the description. Feel free to DM me any questions if you have any issues getting set up and so on. Hope to see you guys there. Like ATT and Killcliff gotta be top 3 now. I am not a fan of ATT. I think they have way too generic training. What does it mean to be up over 250 units? So units are kind of the standardized measure so that you're not talking in like dollar amounts because everyone's starting with a different budget. So everyone does units slightly differently, but a general decent rule is 1 unit equals 1%. So you could say we're up 250% profit. Other Kratos promo 50 times a stream, no exaggeration, you're fine. I'm glad to hear it, thank you. Thoughts on heavyweight, Chael Sonnen, Josh Hockett? He has potential because he's so fast, but I do think someone who's more technical definitely could counter and put him out. If JDM wins, do you see anyone at welterweight beating him? Probably not, honestly. Is boxing taking over the UFC in your opinion? It's getting there. I mean, you need very fundamental boxing at this point. Up 250 units is wild for any sport. Glad to hear it. ATT is basically like a corpo chain like Planet Fitness, I guess. Yeah, it is. It's just not very specialized. Piotr have a chance against Merab? Not really. His style is just so bad against Merab. Opinions on Waldo Cortez Acosta? I did not like him initially. But you know, after his last few performances, I'm on board with him. Do you rate Mario Pinto? I mean, at least he has a nuanced game. He showed off both the striking and the grappling now, but I need to see his defense on the feet a bit more. Waldo or Tom? Still probably Tom, realistically. Is Syndicate MMA good? I don't know what that is, to be honest. Quick predict every champ at the end of next year from flyweight to heavyweight. It's tough because we have a few belts in flux. Honestly, like I'd have to think about it and map it out and such. Do you think elbows are underutilized currently? Yes, I do. It's the gym Merab trains out of. Doesn't Merab train out of Sarah Longo? Or I guess Longo Weidman now? Or am I like behind on this? JDM doesn't have experience. What does that mean? Would you still pick Tom in the Gone rematch? Yeah. BSD or Charles? It's a fight that, like, logically Charles could win, but I could definitely see BSD pulling it off. Great live, bro. Have a good night. Thank you. You too. If Val wins, is she the WMMA GOAT? And same for Islam. If Val wins, she definitely is, yes. If Islam wins, it's harder to say. I would still favor GSP, but it's getting close. Hamzat or Pereira at 205. I think it's a 50-50. Syndicate now and Longo shows up to help. Okay, interesting. Yeah, then Syndicate, I'd have to look into it more. Is it safe to say if Islam gets 3 wins at welterweight, he's the GOAT? Very likely, yeah. Syndicate is why Merab striking has been looking more polished recently. Interesting. Elbers are so cool, to be honest. I hate Clown Jones, but he used them brilliantly. Fair. Yuri or Hamzat? It's a weird fight where it's either like a Hamzat really boring decision or a Yuri late finish, probably. Will Umar beat Merab in the rematch? Very unlikely, in my opinion. Umar is just like, his cardio, I don't know if it's probably a genetic issue, but it's just not at the level it would need to be to beat Merab. Unless he can finish Merab early, but I don't see it happening. You think Jones would beat Tom after seeing a little more footage on Tom? I mean, I thought Jones would beat Tom even before seeing that fight, so. Jan versus Merab. I mean, Jan does not have the style to beat Merab. You don't think Hamza can finish Yuri in 1? It depends what weight class. If it's at light heavyweight, I don't think so. At middleweight, maybe. Didn't you say you hate Merab? Oh, sorry, not Rob. Didn't you say you hate Umar? I'm not a fan of Umar. I think he's very overrated, and I think he only got to where he is because of nepotism. Also on JDM sub, quite unlikely. How much of a chance do you think Islam has? Gilbert took JDM 7 times and could Islam do the same? I think the whole, like, Gilbert took him down narrative is useless, to be honest. Like, fighters evolve. JDM also broke his arm in that fight, so it doesn't really mean anything. However, could Islam win? Of course. I mean, I think this is a near 50-50 fight. I'm just narrowly leaning towards JDM. Do you think Morales could spinning elbow TKO against Brady? The tool Morales has in his arsenal that he uses when he breaks free of the opponent's body lock. It's possible, but I don't think there's going to be like a body lock against the fence situation here, so I don't think it's going to happen. Jones versus Pereira. I take Pereira. Hot take, Francis beats Tom. I don't think it's a terribly hot take. I get what you're saying. I would still probably lean towards Tom, though. Early thoughts on Talbot versus Cejudo. I'm going to lean Talbot, most likely. I just don't think that Cejudo is young enough to win that fight, in all honesty. Outside of Khabib, it really seems like Dagestani cardio is pretty a suspect. Even with Khabib, he definitely would gas out if it got to later rounds. If you were to make a prediction, what would be your fights? Is your predictions for which fights will be the main events of White House be realistic? I do think there's a chance they get Conor back for that. And I do think there's also a chance that they get the whole, like, Jones versus Pereira matchup, because they're going to want the biggest fights possible. So I would not be surprised if those were the two. Seeing how predictable Tom was against Cyril, I kind of see John having a chance against Tom, but he doesn't have the athleticism sides of Gons, so he gets finished by him. I disagree, because his defense is just much better than Gons, and just everything he has is better than Gons, in all honesty. How to get my mom to accept me for being gay. Might be on your own with that one. I don't know. What's the most shocking fight you watched live? Shocking? I mean, shocking in what way? Like an upset, or what? Like, what type of shocking? I love JDM's adjustment of moving away from the high guard to stop being beaten to the hips. Fair, yeah. It is a good adjustment. It's just, could it cost him? Maybe. Kopp versus Royval, one of my favorite matchups. I think Kopp is a very dirty fighter, though. Yeah, I need to look at tape for that one. I don't know. Honestly confused why Pereira wants Jones when he could fight Tom and honestly beat him. Definitely an easier matchup than Jones. And he gets the belt. Third belt. Jones is a useless money fight. I mean, it's probably more of a legacy fight. Even though the third belt is definitely a good thing legacy-wise, if he knocked out Jones, that would probably be, like, especially for casual fans, the biggest thing he could do. Why do you think John won't fight Aspinall, and do you think Leon can take down Prates? Why won't Jones fight Aspinall? I don't know. Do I think Leon can take down Prates? I don't think it's likely. Conor versus Chandler? Yeah, if they're doing that, if they're doing Conor, it'll probably be Conor Chandler. Jones' boxing defense is actually horrendous. That is true. Conor versus Chandler would be such a waste. At least it gets casual fans in. Are you high on Luke Riley debuts next week? I have not seen Luke Riley tape. I need to. Okay, thanks for at least thinking on it for me. No problem. Yeah, sorry, I don't even know how I would approach that personally. It also depends on, like, why you think that your parents would not accept it. What about John, and what about John, do you like the most, I assume you're trying to say? His reads. John Silva, for reference, for anyone listening and not looking at the chat. Just joined. Who do you got between Brady and Morales? Brady sub. To be honest, knocking out Prime Tom is way better than his old semi-retired Jones coming for a payday. I 100% agree. I just think in terms of casual fans, they will probably see Jones as a better achievement. I think also the payday will probably be better. So if he's looking for a last payday, that might be what he wants. The thought of Michael Chandler at the main eventing the White House is horrifying. Fair. How is John Silva able to use his smaller reach in MMA boxing? Just by reads again. It's like he knows when to enter. Prime for Prime, Dustin TKO, Volk at 155. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think Volk is a much better... he's a... I'm not going to say he's a better pure boxer, but he's better at mixing it in with the kickboxing and the wrestling to the point he would throw off Dustin enough, I think. I'm pretty sure that guy was joking. Maybe, but might as well take the question seriously. What would a bigger fight, Pereira versus Jones or Islam versus Topuria? I think for the casual fans, it would be Pereira versus Jones. But for like hardcores, obviously, it's Islam Topuria. Yeah, in terms of pay-per-view, it would probably be Jones versus Pereira. All right, I will probably wrap things up here because I'm definitely starting to lose my voice. I appreciate you all for coming. Hopefully this card is very entertaining and we don't get a bunch of smudge decisions. If you guys are betting, do consider joining my service. Link is in the description. If not, best of luck on your bets. And have a good night, everyone. Thank you all for coming again, and I'll see you guys soon.